In the last video, I talked about my start as a theater kid, my first audition, the wonderful experiences of Annie, High School Musical, and Joseph, and meeting so many wonderful people that had such a heavy impact on my life. We left off with me starting middle school and being able to participate in my school's spring shows in addition to the summer stock productions. When I was in 5th grade, the play that my school did was Oklahoma, and my class had Kansas City as our song. And to say that my class didn't care was an understatement. We had probably the easiest song in the show, and we didn't give 2/10 of a damn. Only a few of us, myself included, actually liked theater, so only a few of us actually cared. We had a double cast since our class sizes were so large and the stage was so tiny. And I was the only theater kid in my group, so I was the only one paying attention. One example of this was when Aunt Eleanor says, "What next?" and the ensemble all yells, "Yeah, what?" But of course, I was the only one paying attention. So what was supposed to be a group line accidentally became my solo. Mr. J, the music teacher, was not happy. After 5th grade, I auditioned for Seussical. Ironically enough, the audition was on the 15th of May. Unfortunately, it was not in the jungle of Newell in the heat of the day in the cool of a pool. And met a bunch of kids that I later ended up going to high school with. One of them, we'll call her Marie, clicked really well with me. We both had that same mischievous energy, and it got to the point that they called us the Wickersham sisters because we were always goofing around and annoying the Wickersham brothers. The guy who played the Cat in the Hat, we'll call him Mitch, was such a funny and sweet guy, and he was just as great with us kids as the people dubbed as child wranglers, that he'd become an unofficial child wrangler himself. The only reason he couldn't be a full-time wrangler was because he was pretty much the main character and was on stage the majority of the time, but he was a wonderful singer and actor and an even better friend. I remember one time, one of the girls in the ensemble was making rings to sell, and she would donate the money she earned to the charities that were dedicated to cleaning up the Gulf of Mexico oil spill. When Mitch heard about this, he immediately took out a $5 bill and gave it to her. He didn't even buy a ring. He just wanted to help. This was also the year I started really getting into writing stories, and Mitch was always one of the first ones to hear my newest one. He always made me feel like my silly little ghost tales were works of art. Springtime in 6th grade was the year of Thoroughly Modern Millie, and my class had the song Not for the Life of Me, aka Millie just got to New York and has stars in her eyes only to immediately get mugged. I was the mugger that grabbed her left shoe, but it took me until my late teens to tell my left from my right without thinking, so I kept accidentally grabbing the wrong shoe and knocking poor Millie off kilter. Now, this was also the year that my emotions started going crazy. I was always an emotional person, but a pubescent girl with undiagnosed BPD that also happens to be a teacher's pet is a very dangerous thing. Millie couldn't be in all of our music classes because she had her own class at the time, and since Mr. J knew I was a theater kid and a fast learner, I was allowed to stand in for Millie while my class learned the dance. This did not make me very popular with the other girls in my class, especially since I'd already been declared as one of Mr. J's favorites because I had been given the solo in the Christmas music concert in 4th grade. Or it could have been that I was one of the few kids in my grade that actually gave a damn about music class, but that's neither here nor there. After 6th grade was Footloose, but that was the one summer I skipped because my mom and I took a trip to New Mexico, which meant I'd have missed half the rehearsals. 7th grade was The King and I, and since I was a 7th grader, I was allowed to audition for an actual part rather than just being in the ensemble. I was cast as Ying, the narrator, the youngest daughter of the king, and as the understudy to Anna, which I was thrilled about. The girl who played Anna was really sweet and honestly a great friend of mine, but I am guilty to admit that I was glad when she couldn't come to rehearsals because that meant I got to play Anna. Yes, I am well aware that a bunch of white children playing Siamese characters is extremely offensive, and yes, it does get worse. After that, the summer stock production was Honk, and Mitch had come back to play the ugly duckling. This was when my self-esteem really started to take a nosedive, but Mitch was still just as wonderful a friend as he was during Seussical. This was also the year that I made a Star Trek reference without even realizing it. I was one of the geese, who was tricked by the cat into flying even though there is a group of hunters nearby. Some of us also doubled as barnyard animals, so instead of getting gray shirts like the rest of the geese, we had either an orange shirt or a red shirt. So the system we came up with was if you were a goose with a gray shirt, you got away unharmed. If you had an orange shirt, you were injured, but ultimately you made it out okay. And if you had a red shirt, then you weren't so lucky. We'd made a red shirt always dies joke without even meaning to. To this day, that is my favorite accidental joke that I have ever made. 8th grade, the spring musical was Aladdin. I told you it got worse. A bunch of white Christian children singing Arabian Nights is just all kinds of wrong in my opinion, but what can you do? I wanted more than anything to be Jasmine, much to the chagrin of one of the girls in my class who was actually a girl of color and was actually named Jasmine. She was also a really good singer, and I admit that the part should have gone to her by principle, but in the moment I was too thrilled to finally be a leading lady that I didn't stop to think about how problematic it was. This was my first main character. Not just a lead, but the female lead. And after spending 6 years in the ensemble singing behind other people, I was ready. It didn't matter that the rest of the cast didn't give a damn except for me, Aladdin, Iago, and 2 of the narrators. I was front and center, and I gave it my all. And call me an egotist, but I was pretty damn good. That summer was Beauty and the Beast. I guess 2013 was the year of Disney. And it was the performance where my shoe accidentally flew off during the kick line in Be Our Guest and hit the purse of a woman in the audience. What made it even better was that this woman had been the vice principal of the middle school that I had just graduated from 3 months prior. That was an interesting story. This is why we have dance shoes with straps on them, kids. As it had been, most of the ensemble were made up of people that I had known from years prior, such as my friend, we'll call her Caitlin, who was in my family during the opening number. We came up with our backstories. My name was Felicity, and I was in love with a servant boy, and Caitlin was my brother Fabio, who was also secretly in love with a servant boy. We had a joke that Caitlin was always Fabio-less. In addition, some of the leads were also folk that I knew as well. For example, Cogsworth had been the turkey in Honk the summer before. Babette had been the cat in Honk, and Gertrude in Seussical. Her name was Becky, and she'd actually been doing summer stock with me since High School Musical. She was the head cheerleader, and she started every show with a hearty, "Come on, Wildcats!" And Gaston was the same man who played Reuben in Coach Bolton. His name was Gil Hasty, and he was a really friendly guy. One day I had to leave rehearsal for Beauty and the Beast halfway through because I wasn't feeling well, and he was kind enough to sit with me until my mother came to pick me up. However, I received some very sad news about halfway through my junior year of college. In the spring of 2020, my mother told me that Gil Hasty had passed away. I may have only known him for 3 short summers, but my heart still aches for his family and loved ones. He was an incredibly talented singer and actor, and a wonderful friend. I hope that he's found peace wherever he is. That was the last official summer stock production I was ever a part of before it got turned from a professional performance to more like a summer camp. But that's far from the end of my theater journey. Naturally, I continued all through high school. Now, you'd think since I knew the theater and this high school inside and out to the point that it was practically a second home for me, I'd thrive. Well, not exactly. I don't know if it was because I wasn't as talented as I thought I was, or if it was because the school didn't want to be accused of nepotism. My mom was still working there. She didn't retire until I was out of college. Or some other reason, but I was in the ensemble literally every time. In fact, I was usually on stage less than the ensemble. In Guys and Dolls, I was in the mission band, who were only in about 5 scenes. Also, the collar on the jacket was so stiff that I couldn't lift my arms all the way. But I came up with a backstory for my character. Her name on the cast list said Bertha, but I never called myself Bertha, and learned the staging and the choreo like you were supposed to do. Sophomore year was Once Upon a Mattress, and I was cast as the Nightingale. That part taught me a lot about the value of being the funny character. All it took was a curled lip after Princess Fred told me to shut up and the crowd was roaring. But I didn't see that. I only saw that I was in the ensemble again. I was worried that I wasn't talented enough and that I wasn't going to go anywhere in life. And of course, with undiagnosed BPD, you tend to have some unhealthy coping mechanisms. Mine was venting to my friends until they didn't want to be my friends anymore. I annoyed the wizard so much because I kept insisting that I wasn't important enough to bow and I was constantly fishing for compliments. Unlike during the summer stock shows, I felt ignored, and I tend to lash out when I feel lonely or unwanted. Prince Dauntless literally said, "Don't talk to me," once when I asked if he was doing okay, and that did not do my self-esteem any favors. It's not a time in my life that I'm proud of, but I can own it at least. The fact that there were so many talented people in my school didn't help. Both Princess Fred and Lady Larkin were played by girls with phenomenal singing voices. Especially Larkin. We'll call her Mandy. Mandy was tall, gorgeous, a fantastic singer, and an even better dancer. I was so jealous. Even more, she was a freshman, a year younger than me, and she'd gotten the secondary female lead. I was instantly struck with, what's she got that I don't got? The fact that she played Cinderella the year after that didn't make my jealousy towards her much better, but she and I rarely crossed paths, so I didn't interact with her too much, which was good because she was a really sweet person, and I doubt my jealousy would have made me treat her with kindness. Sophomore year was also the year I started doing the winter community youth musicals in my hometown. Those deserve a video of their own, and they're going to get a video of their own, but they provided a very much-needed escape from the world of private school theater. For one thing, I actually had lines, and I didn't feel invisible with the rest of the cast like I did during the school shows. I was too stubborn to stop doing theater at my high school, but I was able to actually shine in the community shows. During the winter musical, my school was putting on Little Shop of Horrors, which was my first experience doing tech. I was on the build and paint crew, which I'm sure you know what they do, and when people saw me sewing the leaves onto the largest Audrey 2 puppet, they were weirdly impressed. Up until that point, I legitimately thought that sewing was just a skill that everyone knew, like riding a bike. Junior year was Cinderella, and I broke my ankle over the summer, so I didn't have very high hopes. Even better, I got a stomach bug on the day of callbacks. The director was kind enough to let me do the callbacks virtually, but needless to say, I was in the ensemble again, and I couldn't even dance with everyone because my ankle was still on the mend. But I still did what I could. I didn't want to be forgotten, so every scene I had, I made the best of it. My crowning moment was the search, when all of the women in town were trying on the slipper. We each came up with our own little gag, and I was quite proud when the gag I came up with got a hearty laugh. Pretty much my costume was a skirt and shirt combination that looked like a dress, so I hid one of my own shoes in my waistline behind my back. When I tried to put the slipper on my foot, only for it to not fit, I pointed off stage and shouted, "Look over there!" While the prince and his attendant were looking away, I took my shoe from behind my back. The attendant then gave me a look and held out her hand for me to dejectedly place the slipper back into her palm. People thought it was really funny. Senior year, I decided to try something different. Our brother's school was doing Into the Woods. I went to an all-girls Catholic school, and we occasionally would collab with a nearby Catholic boys' school, mostly for theater and choir. I was sick of being in the ensemble. Not to mention, I'm short as hell and was very often put in the back row behind the taller actors where no one could see me. And I wanted to have an actual part I could sink my teeth into. And I was cast as Jack's mother. At first I was devastated that I wasn't Cinderella or the baker's wife like I wanted, but it was better than nothing. And the kid who played Jack did look quite a bit like me, so we did kind of look like mother and son. Or we would have if I wasn't 5'1" with a baby face. It was a really great time, and I also learned just how fun it is to die on stage. This would later help me with my murder mystery job. Finally, springtime of my senior year rolled around, my big moment before graduation, and I was not in a good place. My depression was only getting worse to the point that it was affecting the things that I really loved. Writing stories, something that had come naturally to me since I was 5, was no longer automatic. The stories were gone, the joy was gone, the only thing I had left was theater. The show was Sister Act, and I'd given up any and all hope of ever getting a lead. I requested to be cast as TJ, one of the goons, because I still wanted lines, but I didn't think I was at all talented enough. After the callback, I was a mess, because I thought I'd completely blown it. But there was something that I hadn't counted on. Maya. Maya was an alum from the school and a summer stock veteran. She'd been Reuben's wife in Joseph, one of the child wranglers in Seussical, and Ida, aka Mother Duck, in Honk. This was a talented woman who only came to direct for 1 year because she was in between gigs / waiting to be added to a proper actors union. Maya knew me. She knew what I could do. She'd seen me when I had a chance to give something my all, and she gave me that chance again. When I saw my name next to Mother Superior on the cast list, I nearly started weeping with joy. The secondary female lead. I'd been cast as the secondary female lead. A real role I could sink my teeth into. Ironically enough, we were a double cast, and the double for Mother Superior was Mandy. They say that comparison is the thief of happiness, and I'd practically gift-wrapped mine. But we both were and are talented in our own way. It took me a long time to find my own talent and my own worth on stage, and it would be a lie to say it's been a cakewalk the entire time. But I learned how to be proud in both the spotlight and the chorus line. And a few months later at the Performing Arts Gala, when Dr. P, the head of the department, stood at the podium for the dedication award, his opening line had the entire section of students turning to me. The recipient of this award has been doing theater longer than practically everyone in this room, except for perhaps her mother. I instantly began tearing up. Finally, I felt seen. What was more, I felt like I had my voice again. And I was about to go off to college, the real world. So in other words, I was ready to give him hell. But that's a story for another day. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like the video and please leave a comment. I always love hearing from you guys. I have been the Maeve of all trades. Thank you so much for watching and have a lovely day.